Hi, everybody. Welcome back to CAEL Live. Today, we're talking about financing your international education. Hello again. My name is Ashwati, and if you're joining us for the first time, CAEL Live is an interactive series where we guide you through your journey to Canada as an international student. We talk about international student life, admissions, and much more. We will also, of course, be talking about the CAEL test. So, if you're an international student looking for guidance, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to be notified about new episodes. In today's episode, we're addressing a topic that you all asked for. Our guest today, Suzanne Tyson, is the founder at Higher Ed Points and is here to share her experience and expertise on higher education funding. Let's go say hello to her. Hello, Suzanne. Thank you so much for coming to our show. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Ashwati. I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I am glad that you've joined us, and I know that you have a presentation prepared for us. But before we begin our segment, we'll go through a couple of questions. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization?
Sure. So my name's Suzanne Tyson, and I'm the founder and CEO of higheredpoints.com, which allows students to use anybody's loyalty points to pay for their tuition in Canada. And you can also repay government student loans with the program. But I've been in the student funding space for over a decade. And one of my favorite things to do is help students find all the money they need to go to school so they can focus on studying instead of worrying about money.
Wow, great. That sounds like a very wonderful endeavor. I want to, since you talked about funding students and, Canada is a popular choice for international students to come study. So I was curious if you could tell us what is it about Canada that makes it an affordable option for students to pursue their higher education?
Well, there's lots of reasons that Canada makes sense for students. First of all, Canada loves international students, and we're very welcoming, and institutions love welcoming international students. So there's that. But I did a quick check today on the exchange rates, and I'm not sure where most of your audience comes from, but when you look at the exchange rates from international currencies into Canadian, the rates are much more favorable than they are for, say, the US and the UK. So I just quickly looked up 100 Canadian dollars is about 5,600 Indian rupees. And the 100, that same 100 US dollars would be 7,382 rupees. And in Hong Kong dollars, it would be 595 Hong Kong dollars to 100 Canadian dollars versus 775 Hong Kong dollars. So right off the top, you're going to get more bang for your buck with your international dollars here in Canada. But also because of Canada's huge land mass, we have institutions across the country. So you've got big centers with institutions, and then you have smaller centers that are more affordable living wise. So overall, depending on what you want to study, you can study in a big metropolitan center, or you can study in a smaller town where the cost of living is a lot less than it would be.
So thank you for bringing up cost of living because in general, I would like to know what are the costs that should be considered while planning to study abroad in Canada, and what are some hidden costs that students miss accounting for?
So the easiest information to find when you're studying abroad, regardless of the country, is the tuition, right? So tuition is the number one expense. And for international students, they'll find the average is 15,000 to 30,000 Canadian dollars for tuition, depending on what and where you study. And then every student, regardless of whether they're international or domestic, has to worry about the living expenses. And in my over a decade in this field, students say it's easy, quotation marks, to budget for tuition and for residence fees and meal plans, but it's the unexpected things like transportation and food and laundry soap and all the other things if you're moving away from home that you may not have accounted for. Plus, I say this all the time with domestic students, things like Uber Eats and Uber can bite into your budget pretty quickly. So those are the sorts of things, but I think the only difference really for international versus Canadian students would be the cost of the tuition. The rest of what I'm going to talk about in the presentation involves what every student, regardless of international domestic status, should be thinking about financially.
Great. Thank you for that. And like you said, you have a presentation, so I'm just going to let you get started.
Okay, I will share my screen and we can talk about ways to pay for school.
Woo!
So hopefully you can see that image. All right. So as I mentioned, I'm the founder of Higher Ed Points, and for over a decade, I've been going out into high schools and talking about finding scholarships and finding different sources of funding. I used to run a scholarship matching company, and what I found was that students were always asking about all the other sources of funding out there. So it evolved into this ways to pay for school. So the very first thing that your audience will have to do is figure out, just try to get my screen to switch here. There we go. Is the first thing, it doesn't matter where you're coming from or what kind of student you are and what stage, where do you want to study in the whole world in this case? We've got lots of amazing colleges and universities in Canada. You have to decide what program you want, and then that will lead you to the decision about what school. Canada is, of course, in my opinion, your best option. But you can study full-time, part-time, co-op, and now, because of where we are today, there are tons of great online options as well. And then the big question is, where are you going to live? Are you going to live with roommates, on campus, etc.? Doesn't matter what you decide on all those things, everybody has to pay. So that's what I'm here to help you with. The very first part of your question, if you haven't made a decision yet about coming to study in Canada or what you want to study, I would say first go to the website studyincanada.com. And it's one of a suite of websites that I'll show you about. Our pals over at the School Finder group run Study in Canada. And the reason I like this site for this part of the exploration is you can actually put in, I put business in the search functionality here, and it pulled up Waterloo, Concordia University, SAIT, University of Alberta, Centennial. If you scroll down, you'll see all the different schools that offer business programs. And then the beautiful thing is you can actually then start filtering. So you can filter on university or college. Do you want to do a bachelor's or a doctorate, post-diploma? Do you want to study a co-op program? Are you going to do a transfer from college to university, et cetera? And then the Canadian province is listed here. So you can actually select which province you think you might want to live in. And then you'll see here, if you can see my cursor, you can compare different schools. And in each school, you've got Waterloo, Accounting and Financial Management. You've got a bachelor's option, a co-op option, and an honors option. And I won't click through to those now, but what happens here is it will give you the cost, the requirements to get into the program, and then scholarships that may be available at that school. So it's a really great resource for people to start with when they're starting to explore. Then the money part. This is my favorite part. Once you figure out what you want to study and where you want to study, you can find that tuition at the campus website for the program you want to study. That's a very easy thing to find. School Finder and Study in Canada have it as well. The residence fees and the meal plans, you can also find that. So those are the easy things to find. If you go back to Study in Canada, I've got a screenshot at the end of the presentation. It actually has estimates of food and living expenses that you can plug in there. But what I would do is take a look at what you're spending perhaps at home, look at what's at Study in Canada, and then do that rough translation. I've got 2 kids in post-secondary right now. One is in residence and one is he's in first year engineering, and my daughter is in 4th year. And they have found it's very different what they need to budget for food because he's got a meal plan, but what they both under budget is snacks and extra food outside of what they've budgeted. Books in Canada, depending again on your program. If you're coming into nursing, you could be spending $600 a term on textbooks. And if you're not, you can get a lot of resources in some programs online and used books, etc. The domestic student tuition to living expenses ratio is generally about 30%. So of your total annual costs, a domestic student will spend 30% of that in tuition and the rest in living expenses. I would actually flip that for international students and say 50 to 60% of your total annual cost is going to be the tuition fee for international studies. This resource we created and put up at the link you'll see down at the bottom, and you can actually download an Excel spreadsheet and update that as you go along. The sources of funds that exist for Canadian students would be RESPs, which is a government savings program, and then all the other things are applicable for international students. And what we recommend you do is fill out both sides of this form until you find out what your gap is. And every 97% of Canadian students will also have a gap. And this is where the fun part comes in for you in terms of uncovering sources of funding. So lots of funding does exist out there, different categories. Merit-based would be all of the leadership and marks-based awards. Financial need-based would be for people who can prove that they're in financial need. And then the other segment on this, which is, I call it the middle 60, because 60% of students never have high enough marks and their parents make too much money for them to qualify for a lot of that other funding. So I'll spend some time going through that other section. The challenge for international students is a very large number of these sources of funding won't be available to you because they have permanent residency or Canadian citizenship requirements. But don't despair, because I'm going to help you find where to go to find more money. So if you're already in Canada and you're looking at post-secondary, you can use higher ed points. You can actually use it even as an international student. But the way that it works is you need to have somebody who collects loyalty points, and lots of countries around the world have loyalty programs. But in Canada, if you're not here, when you get here, every time you buy something, you're going to be asked for the loyalty card at different programs. So there's lots of different ways for you to collect these loyalty points. So Aeroplan, TD, CIBC, American Express, and Scotia. Scotia isn't up on the slide, but they actually have credit cards that offer loyalty points. And those points, instead of redeeming them for a flight or merchandise, can be redeemed into a higher ed points education credit. And then we deposit the funds directly into the school of your choice on your behalf. And so far in Canada, we've helped people turn 300 million loyalty points into millions of dollars of tuition. And lots of our members are international students, and they help fill the gap using the program. One other thing that we've just launched, so you're one of the first groups to see this, is something that we've called the Alt Scholarship, as an alternative to scholarship. So you don't have to be a Canadian citizen, and it's a crowdfunding platform. And it includes everybody, so international students. It's very easy. You simply put your profile picture up and what you want to study, what you want to do when you graduate, and then you can send it out to your network, and Higher Ed Points is going to help all the people who participate in finding funding as well for that. And so you can go over to the URL at the top and register for that. And the only requirement is that you study at a Canadian institution, because we deposit the funds directly into your school account on your behalf. So moving on to other sources of funding, the Canadian government really wants international students to choose Canada as their study destination. So this Government of Canada website is where you can go to find out all you need to know about coming and studying in Canada. That link at the top will take you to the general website, and then the link at the bottom will take you to scholarships for international students. So I would recommend, for government funding, that's the first place that you go. In terms of scholarships, the site that I recommend the most, there are several in Canada, but scholarshipscanada.com actually has the largest database of scholarships, both the independent ones and also the ones at institutions. So again, if you're looking to take less time, go to Scholarships Canada, which is a sister site to Study in Canada. And after working in this industry for so long, the people believe that there aren't any scholarships out there for them, but there are scholarships, and there are scholarships for international students. And you don't have to have high marks, and you don't have to have financial need for a number of them. It's really a matter of looking for them. And there's also awards at every stage of your academic career. A lot of students think it's just from high school going into first year, but University of Toronto, for example, has 8,000 individual awards in their list of scholarships and awards. So please make sure that you go to the financial aid department on every campus, because that's where you're going to find information on scholarships and awards. Ryerson was a good example of a school that had so much excess funding left over from their endowed awards, which are the ones they have to give out every year, that they asked the community, what do you need money to fund? And it turned out it was metro passes. So the Toronto Transit Commission, and everybody who was registered and put their hand up was given $400 to cover their transit. So that's my first recommendation here, is make sure you go to your campus financial aid office when you get into the school. And every single website has a link for financial aid, and financial aid officers are there to help you navigate the things that are available. So I've got a picture of Shelley Clayton, who works at University of New Brunswick. And if anybody's considering University of New Brunswick, it's a beautiful school. It's one of our big U15 schools, which is the big research institutions. And Shelley Clayton will find money from under any rock she looks for students. And her recommendation for international students is make sure that you know who your contact is in the financial aid, because even though you can't, you're not eligible for government student aid, there are often funds available for living expenses. So there are bursaries, there are need-based bursaries, there are international student bursaries particularly. There's work study that you can get also as an international student that's often managed through the campus financial aid department. You can become a teaching assistant. There are gift cards. Shelley Clayton, she created a relationship with Sobeys, which is a big grocery store, and she can give a gift card that will cover food and pharmacy and gas. And then she mentioned also food banks are on most campuses now if you're in need of food, and they do clothing swaps at a bunch of different campuses so that you have business attire for interviews, etc. So those campus financial aid officers, the FAOs, are your campus hero. And there, I would say, if there's one buddy you want to make when you get to campus, it's your campus financial aid officer. I've used an example of a scholarship that is available to international students, the Octeris Rebel with a Cause. Now, you would find this at Scholarships Canada, and I am so pleased to say that the picture of the woman there, her name is Reem. She's actually been granted, she was accepted at York University in Toronto, and she won the Octeris Rebel with a Cause award for $10,000, which is ensuring she's able to come to Canada from Syria. She's actually still in Syria. So it's one of the few awards for that amount of money that is available to international students. And so that comes up every spring. You'll see that one open up again sometime in April or May. And then I mentioned the ALT scholarship already. So my advice for, I don't want to take too much time up here because you can look at these slides, they'll be made available, but register at scholarshipscanada.com. There are other ones out there, Scholar Tree, etc., is one that's also available. But when you get in there, take your time with your registration, because they're going to ask you, if you are an international student, what languages you speak, what other professional designations you might already have, what year of study you're interested in studying. And when you register, then you'll have a mailbox full of things that are suited to your profile. You will have to go through that profile, but create a master list that you get from all of the awards that you want to apply for, and put the deadline for all of the things that are available a week before that deadline. And you can also sign up for alerts at Scholarships Canada. Every single scholarship will have the criteria and the terms and conditions in there, and that's where you'll find lots of gold, because you'll know right away if it's open to international students, and you'll know what they're looking for in their applicants, so you can tailor your application to what they're looking for. And then what I always say is, if you find one that really piques your interest, something that seems easy for you, apply for that first. And then if you have time, you can apply for the rest. Because what we find is, and I've adjudicated a number of scholarships, the things that really appeal to the applicant, you can tell in that application. So it comes across, the passion for the subject comes across. And then there's always new awards that are being added, both at Scholarships Canada, but also on campus. So make sure that you do revisit those sites regularly to see what's come up. Now, as an international student, if you haven't already set up a LinkedIn profile, absolutely go and set up your profile. Put in your what you want to study, what your desired future career is in your profile, and then connect with other people that you might know. You can connect potentially with your teachers or with people in your community, or if your parents if you're here in Canada already and your parents are here, connect with the friends and family that you meet. And what you'll find is when you start connecting with different people, you'll see information about different industries that might be of interest. And every single campus recruiter, especially now with COVID, is on LinkedIn. And you can either follow them or you can connect with them and start building a relationship, because they absolutely want to build relationships with people they're going to hire down the road. And you can also do lots of research on industries and companies and jobs. It's the best free tool out there that you'll get. And I've got 2 screenshots in here. Anastasia is an internship recruiter for Tesla, and she gives advice to people who are applying for Tesla positions as interns on how to get your resume to the top of the list. So that's one example. You can follow her, and she'll be posting things probably in her profile when jobs come up. The other thing, there are requirements for the number of hours international students can work here in Canada, and you can find that at that canada.ca website. But you can go into LinkedIn and put in who's hiring, and I did that. I just put in hiring in Toronto, and I got 158,000 results. And you can see Daniel's, he's hiring, Fraser Milband is also hiring. And so you can actually see if there are any connections that you know and get a leg up on getting jobs. So this is the last slide. It's got additional resources that that you can tap into, and I thank Paragon for hosting me today on the show. It's fabulous, and I love their test because it's Canadian based, and it will set you up for success once you do get into your post-secondary journey. The Study in Canada site I mentioned, that's a link there, and you'll see it's got about Canada, cost of living, and then the Study in Canada information that I showed you on that earlier slide. And then these are the links to the Government of Canada, it's EduCanada, their scholarships and news and provincial and territorial awards for non-Canadians as well can be found at these sites. And that's about it. So if you wanted to follow Higher Ed Points, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And feel free to send an email to me at info@higheredpoints.com. And we're going to provide this presentation as well to our friends at Paragon. So if you wanted to reach back and look at the presentation, you can anytime. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suzanne, for that very detailed presentation. I think a lot of the questions that many of our students had has been answered in this presentation, and I'm very excited to share this with our users across different social media. So thank you for this. We have a question here from one of our audience members, and I think you already answered this, but I'm just going to ask you anyway. Do I have to be a high-performing student to be approved for funding, and can international students apply for student loans?
So for Canadian government student loans, you do need to be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. And high performing, no, that's the scholarship that I showed, the Opteris Award. The woman who set that scholarship up really wanted to find a female age 16 to 28 who was a true rebel. So somebody who'd broken all the rules. So Reem, the woman who won, is in Syria. She focuses on female, like feminist rights, and she's very outspoken in her community. And she had overcome a number of barriers in her home country to get to the stage where she was accepted at York University. So she's an example. Marks weren't even considered, and the fact that she was an international student, she was welcome to apply. And it was thrilling for me because I worked with Janet Hawkins, who put that scholarship together, to show her that we want international students to come to Canada, because not only are international students good for the Canadian economy, but when they're here, they contribute to society. They may stay, they may work, build a family, but if they go back to their home country, they're going to have that bridge that's been created between Canada. So in my work at Higher Ed Points, whenever I talk to scholarship providers, I really question them on whether they need to have that international student criteria. But there are scholarships out there that don't require marks, don't require high performing, and will let you apply as an international student. And I believe Paragon, you guys had a big scholarship yourself last year. So was it
We
the one?
have one now too. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, we do have scholarship programs, and the link is always there in the description. And we are awarding 2 international students, 1 local and 1 from abroad. So please do check that out. And thank you for bringing that up, Suzanne.
Mhm.
So I have another question for you, and something that is a very common starter question, if I can say so myself, on Instagram, where a lot of people, they find our page and they see that we're providing guidance on international education, and these are students. So these are students who are still finishing their 12th grade, who are still like pursuing 11th grade. They're just looking at options to study abroad, and the first question they always ask me is, how much does it cost to study in Canada? That is the number one question. And I know that in your presentation, you mentioned that there is, it differs by region, it differs by province, by tuition. But is there one answer for this question? How do I answer the question, how much does it cost to study in Canada?
So I really do not like the "it depends" answer, but what I would budget for is the tuition piece and the residence piece. You can find that information. So that's where the wild variations may come in. And I told you about my 2 children who are studying. My daughter's tuition is $6,000. My son's tuition is, I believe, $14,000 or $15,000 because she's in arts and he's in engineering. So that's very different for him. That international student tuition is probably double or triple that. So the at the low level, it could be 15,000 up to 30,000 for tuition, but that's easy to find on any of the websites. In terms of living costs, if you go to the Study in Canada website, it actually tells you what the rent could be in an urban center or in a rural center. So that's a resource to go and check out. I would say that living expenses, in my experience, when I sit in a room full of parents and students with that spreadsheet, if the student wants to move away from home, it's about $20,000 a year they should budget for living expenses. And if they're able to live at home and commute, you can probably take $5,000 to $10,000 off those living expenses. So even if you're living close to, for example, in Toronto, if you're living close enough to walk, bike, or somehow get to campus without taking transportation, it'll be a lot less than if you're living, a subway ride away from the campus. So I would say, on average, in my experience, it's between $20,000 and $24,000 of living expenses. And if you add your tuition on top of that, just budget for that. But there's no one simple answer.
No, that's good. A lot of the times, students who ask me, I'm pretty sure that they haven't fully realized it, but they do mean living expenses because, like you said, tuition is always listed on the website, and they're going to eventually find that out. So this is a really good tip that you provided. So thank you so much. I now have an answer.
Okay.
I now have a way to help them out, which I'm very thankful for. So thank you so much for joining us. I still have one last question to ask you before I let you go. In your experience, what has been your favorite part about working with international students choosing to study in Canada?
Well, I love international students because I find them very brave, to come and study in Canada, if they come from a warm country to a cold country. But I also love the fact that they want to experience a different culture and that they're committed enough to education, because my mission in life is to provide access to education. But I also love the stories about what they want to do, whether they want to stay in Canada, whether they want to go home. And so for me, education is a human right, and it's something that I think motivates people at so many different levels. I do find international students, for the most part, really understand that education is really important. That's the other thing, is that they share my passion for education.
Wonderful. So that was our last question. Again, I want to thank you for taking the time to make such a detailed presentation and helping our international students out. I'm sure that a lot of them are finding this very helpful, so I thank you on behalf of them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwati. Thank you so much.
So that was Suzanne Tyson. And if you're looking to learn more about her website and her organization, I've linked it in the description below. You are welcome to check it out. And if you still have questions about higher education, anything to do with international education, please ask your questions in the comments below, and we can address it on our next episode. Now, we received a few comments about CAEL lessons, so I just wanted to let you all know that CAEL test lessons will be on a separate playlist. It is called CAEL Prep with Brandy. We drop a lesson every Tuesday. Please do check it out. Brandy provides a lot of information on essay writing and making sure that your information is correct, something that's very useful for people who are applying for scholarship programs. Now, speaking of scholarship, if you are an international student living abroad or in Canada, you may be eligible for the CAEL scholarship. If you took the CAEL test on or after July 2020, or if you're planning to take it in the near future, you can win 4,000 Canadian dollars towards your tuition. I will link our scholarship page below and you can check it out. If you have any doubts, please let me know in the comments below. Lastly, we are aware that a few locations in Ontario are going back into lockdown in December. So if you're looking to write the CAEL test, you can do so at home. Please consider writing CAEL online for your academic English proficiency test. It is the same test, only you can do it on your computer at home. The link is in the description as well. If you have any questions about writing your test online or about anything involving security, please let us know. We'd be happy to chat. You can also connect with us on our Instagram account. The handle is @CAELTest, and we're pretty chatty there, so do send us a DM. Okay, so our next episode will be on Thursday, December 3rd at 11 a.m. PST. Please join us and also invite anybody else who is interested in studying in Canada. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for future videos. Until then, please stay safe and have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.